We're going to need some over here because they're going to have to see the screen. So, yeah, somebody in here is fine. Well, good morning, everyone. Mayor Bibb and I want to give a report in regard to the efforts to deal with the violent criminals. The essential function of government is to keep people safe. Here in Cleveland, it is really a great team effort, and you're going to hear from a number of speakers here today. For the past few years, the state of Ohio has been partnering with the Cleveland Division of Police in ongoing large-scale violent crime reduction initiative. The mayor and I announced this enhanced partnership, including many partnering agencies, back in 2023. But again, I want to emphasize that lead always is the Cleveland Police Department, but there's so many different agencies that are involved in this, and I think that's what makes it work. Locally, of course, you start with the Cleveland Division of Police, the Cuyahoga County Prosecuting Attorney's Office from the state, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, the Ohio Investigative Unit, the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center, the Ohio Adult Parole Authority, which is a division of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, and certainly our federal partners, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the U.S. Marshals Service. This morning we're going to share with you the cumulative results of this work to date. I'll kind of talk at a high level, and then Deputy Chief Jared Shalat will explain more. Just to make it kind of clear, our teams don't blanket the entire city looking for everyone that they can arrest. This is a targeted operation. And as you'll see from the data that we will show in a few minutes, what every police officer knows is the truth, and that is that it's a relatively small number of even the criminals that commit the vast majority of violent crime. And so the efforts always are to go after the violent offenders, the violent repeat offenders. These are data-driven, focused operations where the most violent offenders are the ones who are targeted. We're surging into the areas where people are legally carrying guns and firing them in the streets, the areas where people are being carjacked, the areas where people are getting killed. Let me start with a case example to help everyone understand how these partnerships work. What you're going to see is the Ohio State Highway Patrol and the Cleveland Police Department try to stop a car without a license plate. The car takes off, and the patrol's aviation unit takes over from there. You'll take a look at the screen.
He's still running wrong direction travel Woodland, passing 84th eastbound at this time. You can back off, Chopper does have it. And he is going to go through, he's jumping up on this sidewalk. He's actually caught up in traffic here, stand by. Driver's door's open, looking for a foot bail here. We got two on foot as attempted carjacking. They're walking up to a Cadillac SUV right now, trying to break in. Might be a firearm. Looks like there might be a firearm that the driver's using. So black male, skinny, gray shorts, and a black deer rack. He's got a gun with him. Just be advised. Just drop the cell phone.
Well, that's certainly terrifying. Imagine someone with a gun trying to get in the car with you while you're sitting there. Just very scary. 2 arrests came out of this specific case, but overall, the combined work of everyone here today has led to more than 1,400 felony arrests since July 2023. 1,400 felony arrests since July 2023. The 1,400 felony arrests are all from the focused operations that we're talking about. They're all arrests for serious crimes. People want on warrants for things like murder, shootings, drive-bys, as well as those arrested after they were caught committing serious crimes, like what you saw in the video that we just showed you. By the way, the 2 who were arrested in that particular case were illegally possessing a gun that was modified to be fully automatic. That's what we're finding time and time again. People are carrying guns when the law says they can't. But these are people who don't care about the law, and many are repeat offenders who commit crimes over and over again. Now, we want to share with you some data. This is newly compiled data from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, spanning a period from 1974 to 2023. This reaffirms what we've been saying for years. It is a small group of people responsible for most of the violent crime in the state of Ohio. Again, the data I'm showing you now is not specific to Cleveland. It is statewide data. Make that very clear. This is statewide data that we're showing. The latest numbers show that less than 1% of Ohio's adult population was arrested for a violent crime or weapons offense in any given year. Most of them are repeat offenders. Let's look at the violent crime arrests. Take a look at the chart. The analysis found that 69% of individuals arrested for a violent crime between 1974 and 2023 had been arrested more than once. But now look at this. When we drill down on the numbers even further. When you pull out the repeat offenders arrested 5 times or more, they constitute a third of all arrests. If you look at the numbers, can we go back? So if you look at the statewide numbers, these are violent crimes, people arrested for violent crimes, 33% of them already had 5 or more arrests. 2 to 4 of them, 2, 3, or 4, isn't basically another third, 36%. And the first arrest was 31%. Let's look at the weapon issue. These are people arrested specifically on weapons charges between 1974 and 2023, 74 to 23. When we're looking just at weapon offenses, 80% of people arrested are repeat offenders. 81% of people arrested are repeat offenders. They've been arrested 2 times or more. Now, when we go down even further, let's look at those arrested 5 times or more. If you take a look at that, 5 times or more, half of them were arrested 5 times or more. These to me are shocking figures, but of no surprise, frankly, to anybody in law enforcement up here who deal with this every single day. Weapons offenses, the same as violent offenses, time and time again, it's the same people. 50% of all people arrested on weapons charges over the last 49 years were repeat offenders who had been arrested at least 5 times, and sometimes many more than that. This leads into the next major data point, which is related to firearms. Since the launch of this partnership in 2023, the local, state, and federal teams, again, I will emphasize the cooperative nature of all of this, everyone working together. And I just came from a briefing, about an hour's briefing, talking about how that combined effort is making all the difference in the world. So this partnership between the local, state, and federal teams these teams have confiscated more than 1,000 guns since 2023, 1,000 guns that were in the hands of those who were prohibited by law from carrying them. These are all guns that are now off the streets and can't be used to hurt anyone ever again. Now let me give you some examples of guns seized by our Ohio Investigative Unit during missions with Cleveland Police Department. The Ohio Investigation Unit enforces Ohio's liquor laws and can make arrests anywhere that liquor is sold. These 3 guns were seized from a convicted violent offender this year at a Cleveland gas station. Because of his previous record, the suspect was prohibited from carrying a weapon, yet he had 3. What's great about ballistic evidence is the shell casings can be run through the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, or NIBIN, to be compared to casings from guns used during other crimes. In this case, NIBIN connected the large firearm in the photo to a murder that happened just 5 days earlier. That connection is considered new evidence that law enforcement can use in their investigation into that earlier homicide. Another case. This is one of 3 guns that were confiscated from 3 juveniles at a Cleveland liquor store. Obviously, kids are not allowed to possess guns, nor are they allowed to buy liquor. This gun was linked through NIBIN to several shootings in the Cleveland area, including a homicide. Charges have been filed in both of these cases, and the investigation remains ongoing. Now, in a moment, I will turn it over to Mayor Bibb, but I want to also mention the work of our Ohio Adult Parole Authority and the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center. The Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center is something we created after I became governor. Both of these state agencies are also supporting these missions. ONIC gathers intelligence on wanted suspects, and the Adult Parole Authority focuses on offenders who've been released from prison but have violated the terms of their post-release control. I also want to stress that crime isn't just a problem in Cleveland. The big data that we showed, of course, is statewide. Partnerships like this are not unique to Cleveland alone. We know that state, local, and federal collaboration works, which is why we're doing similar initiatives in other cities across the state of Ohio. Teams are sharing resources, sharing intelligence, and sharing manpower to take criminals off the street so residents can feel safe and comfortable in their own neighborhoods. And frankly, that's what it's all about. People have a right to feel safe in the neighborhoods where they live. They have every right to do that. Violent criminals should be on notice. We have no plans to scale back these focused enforcement operations. So those out there committing violence in Cleveland, there's a good chance that this team, one of these teams, will see you soon. Mayor?
Thanks, Governor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Governor. In July of 2023, our city experienced a mass shooting in the Warehouse District. And one of the first calls I got was from Governor DeWine, and his question was very simple: how can I help? How can I help? And since then, we've been working very closely with the governor, the state, and federal law enforcement on deepening these partnerships. It's a key pillar of our RISE initiative, raising investment and safety for everyone. And this partnership is a key example of what collaboration is all about. As I've often said, public safety is a group project. The men and women of our police department can't do it alone. Federal law enforcement has played a critical role, and state law enforcement has played a great role as well, too, as well as the county and the prosecutor. So I want to just thank all of them for their support. Because of this partnership, because of this intentional collaboration, we've gotten thousands of illegal guns off our streets. We've made hundreds of felony arrests. We've beefed up traffic enforcement in hotspots across the city. And so I want the residents of Cleveland to know that we are not going to spare any expense to keep our city safe. And you have thoughtful partners from the governor to federal law enforcement to county law enforcement, all working together to make sure Cleveland can be a safer city for the hardworking residents of our community. And I want to have Deputy Chief Slott talk more about this partnership and our plans for the rest of the year. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to express Chief Todd's apologies. Unfortunately, it's cold and flu season, and it gets the best of us sometimes, so I'm here on her behalf. First, I would like to start by thanking Governor DeWine, Mayor Bibb, for their continued support as we work collaboratively to make our city safer. The partnerships we have built are not occasional, they're not symbolic. They're active, ongoing, and mission-driven. Enforcing the law in our community is complex work. The men and women involved in our violent crime initiatives face challenging and often dangerous investigations. Our partnerships with federal, state, and local agencies, along with access to advanced technology and shared resources, have been critical in driving results we share today. Since 2023, we have seized large quantities of illegal drugs, recovered stolen vehicles, and arrested dangerous offenders who threaten our neighborhoods. To briefly highlight one recent example, during a violent crime reduction detail on May 27, 2025, members of the Safe Streets Gang Task Force responded to a felonious assault shooting in our 2nd District. With the support of the Crime Intelligence Center, CJIC, the Gang Impact Unit, and our Aviation Unit, officers located and confirmed the suspect vehicle in the area. They engaged the vehicle, and an armed suspect fled on foot with a Draco pistol, but was quickly apprehended after this short-foot pursuit. His stolen firearm, an auto switch making an automatic firearm, and the suspect vehicle were recovered as evidence in his crimes. This is just one of many examples where our partnerships have made a measurable impact. Since 2023, this initiative has resulted in the seizure of over 1,000 firearms, many connected to crimes or in possession of individuals who should not have them. Many of the seizures are also a result of follow-up investigations. In the most recent initiative alone, Northern Harvest, officers seized 39 firearms to date. Chief Todd is very proud of leading the men and women in our division for this great city. We remain deeply grateful for the dedication of our officers, our partnerships with local, state, federal agencies, our continued collaboration with our county and federal prosecutors, our continued support from our administration in the mayor's office and city council and the safety committee. And I also want to thank our media partners. Thank you for continuing supporting us and driving home our message of a unified front in law enforcement and violent crime reduction. Thank you. Together, we're making Cleveland a safer place for everybody, citizens and visitors. I'd like to kick it now to Director Wilson.
Thank you. I'm Andy Wilson, Director of the Ohio Department of Public Safety. I'm going to direct my comments today to 3 different groups. The first group really is to the men and women of law enforcement who are putting on their uniform every day and going out into the streets to protect our friends, our families, and our communities. Man, listen, thank you. Thank you for what you do every day. What you do truly matters. It truly matters to the people you do it for. And the bottom line is, man, we need you. We need you out there. I know it's thankless, it's incredibly dangerous, but if it weren't for you, chaos would reign. So thank you for what you're willing to do every day. The second group that I want to address is the people who live here in Cleveland. Look, we need your help. We need your help, man. When violence is happening in your neighborhood, stand up. Stand up and help the detectives who are investigating. Stand up and say no more. We are not going to take this as a neighborhood. We will not allow these violent criminals to rule our streets, and work hand in hand with our law enforcement officials to make your community a safer place. And finally, the third group that I want to address is to the law enforcement executives and to really our citizen city council members and our citizen government leaders. We have to We have to create a culture and an environment in our law enforcement agencies where the men and women that we trust to protect us are empowered to do their job. We have to allow them to be proactive in getting that small number of violent criminals off the street. We know who they are. We have to be proactive in going out and getting them. If we're only reactive, it's too late. The only thing that works in really calming down violence and making our communities safe is pressure and proactivity. And as a leader in law enforcement, it's your job to create an environment where your folks are empowered to do that. So thank you. Again, thank you for everything that you all do. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Acting Special Agent in charge of the ATF, John Smurglia.
Good morning. I just want to start out and thank the governor, thank the mayor, thank you for bringing us together to fight violent crime here in the city of Cleveland. As you've heard in Cleveland, we've utilized intelligence, investigation, and partnership to attack violence at its core. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has a unique role in helping lead the fight against violent crime. Here in Cleveland, we are on the forefront of utilizing new strategies to stop violence. Our Northeast Ohio Crime Gun Intelligence Center, or CGIC, which opened just over a year ago, has been on the leading edge of innovation by first being located within an OCDF strike force and now to be the HSTF, or Homeland Security Task Force. This CGIC was developed as a result of the partnerships and leadership of the men and women you see here today. And I want to thank each one of the people here today for their support, because it would not be here without them. The CGIC equips investigators with specialized ATF resources such as NIBIN correlations, firearms tracing, and shooting link analysis, to name just a few. These tools help investigators connect the dots. We also utilize technology, real-time analysis, firearm experts, and analytics from our intelligence analysts. This collaborative approach, and I emphasize collaborative, because the Northeast Ohio CGIC is not only run by ATF personnel, but by state and local personnel from various agencies, to include, for example, the Ohio Investigative Unit, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the Cleveland Division of Police. It is the collaboration which enables investigators to quickly identify suspects and take action to prevent further violence. Now, just to give you a couple quick stats, for October 2025, which is encompassed in this violent crime initiative that we're talking about today, there were a total of 560 acquisitions in Cuyahoga County. That includes casings and firearms. As a result of these acquisitions, there were 85 leads provided to investigators to go out and try and solve. And there were a total of 341 firearms test fired for purposes of NIBIN entry. If you think about that number, it's significant. That's 341 firearms that are going somewhere they're not supposed to, or used in something they're not supposed to be. And this group is making a difference by taking those off the street. I'm proud to stand here with our partners in an effort to keep Cleveland safe, and there is one clear message. Violence has no place in our city. We will not tolerate it, and together, we will be together to build a stronger, better Cleveland. And now, I'd like to turn it over to Special Agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Gregory Nelson.
Good morning. And first, I want to thank again Governor DeWine, Mayor Bibb. Thank you for recognizing not only the growing violent crime concerns across Northern Ohio, but also your steadfast support in initiating this powerful and impactful results-driven initiative. The Cleveland FBI is proud to partner with all the federal, state, and local partners you see behind us and standing up with us today, and we would not be successful alone. And I can say from FBI Director Patel that your FBI is laser focused on violent crime reduction and taking dangerous criminals and repeat offenders off of the street. For the community, know that our work is never done. Governor DeWine, Mayor Bibb, We affirm to you that the partners you see here will continue to identify, investigate, and prosecute violent criminals and restore peace and well-being throughout our communities. So thank you for your participation and support.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the governor for all of his support over these last 7 years in office, as well as Mayor Bibb. To the Cleveland media that is here, when you see that video, probably doesn't come as a surprise, because it's the kind of thing that we see far too often within our community: violent, senseless crime. And I just want to thank, as everybody in this room knows, Cuyahoga County is a very unusual animal. We have 60-plus communities. We have 90-plus law enforcement agencies that work hand in hand. And I want to thank all of our partners for helping us, along with the leadership of both Governor DeWine and Mayor Bibb, to try to bring this problem to a close. And again, I just want to thank them. We all see what goes on in our community, and it's only through partnership and our community at large that we can put this nonsense to an end. We see it far too often. And again, it's about people getting involved. And I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners. I want to give a shout out to Judge Oliver. Please end the consent decree and let the Cleveland police be police. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and we will continue to work hard to keep our community safe. Thank you.
All right, we're happy to take any questions.
Governor DeWine, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department has been patrolling Cleveland streets since 2023. There have been three deaths, out of chases, out of traffic violations with those deputies involved. Had you been made aware of these chases, and should Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department continue patrolling the streets? They were brought in, Mayor Bibb said about the mass shooting, they were brought in shortly after that.
Well, first of all, yes, I'm aware of that. The decision whether the sheriff is in the city is not my decision. That's the city's decision. That's the county's decision. I do have thoughts in general, not in specific, because every chase is fact specific. We have to be careful. And there's protocols. There's a standard protocol that's accepted in law enforcement. Whatever that protocol is, I think should be followed. We have a statewide protocol. It's not binding on anybody, but it is best practices. And I would just say, if you're dealing with a high-speed chase, following that correct protocol, I think, is important. Now, the situation you saw here did not involve that. And the reason was that we were able to have a Ohio State Highway Patrol helicopter in the air. Now, we don't have enough helicopters to be up in the air in Cleveland every single day or any place else. So I don't want to mislead anybody and say we've always got a helicopter up there, but when we do have a helicopter up there, that's the advantage of it. That helicopter can just follow that car, be right on that car. I've been up in these helicopters. I've done it here in Cleveland, and it's amazing what you can see through that camera. I mean, you can just go right down on that person. So it's a very, very effective tool to catch the guy and to catch the individual without a high-speed chase. So.
The evidence that you showed us today, a preponderance of the folks committing these crimes, a small group that everybody has alluded to, are repeat offenders. It appears that the police are doing their job, getting a few people off the street. Citizens are helping, and then why are these people back on the street if they are repeat offenders? Why are they being let back out to prey on the community again?
Well, I think that's the question, frankly. I think that's the question that the citizens of Cleveland, the citizens of Ohio, always need to ask. If someone is a repeat offender time after time after time, why are they still out? I think that's always a question. Our criminal justice system depends on a lot of players. It depends on people who are up here. You know, you got to have the police do their job. You got the prosecutors do their job. You got the courts do their job as well. So again, I would just, you know, urge our courts. I don't want to make any blanket comments. I have a great deal of respect for our judges, but you know, each case has to be looked at, and I think that we all have an obligation to make sure those in the criminal justice system have an obligation to make sure the judge knows what that record is of that individual before the judge sets bond and before the judge makes a decision, maybe in sentencing. You know, giving the judge all the facts is important. Then ultimately that judge has to make that decision. But when you see statistics like this, it just confirms, frankly, what everybody up here already knows, and every law enforcement officer knows. It is repeat violent offenders who are committing most of the violent crime, and we have to target them and go after them.
Question for the governor and the mayor. Have the two of you had conversations about the possibility of, or how you would react if the president wanted to send the National Guard into Cleveland? And what is your plan for handling that?
Well, let me start. What we're talking about today is the best way to deal with crime, and it's the best way to deal with violent crime. I always feel that you should deploy the asset that is the most appropriate for whatever the problem is. So in the past, several of our cities in Ohio asked me to deploy the National Guard when we were having a tough summer, and there was disturbances and concerns about that. We deployed the Guard. So I'm not hesitant to do that. When I'm asked by a mayor, you know, that's a very, very serious request, and I take it very, very seriously. When we deploy the Guard. Just to look at the whole picture. During the pandemic, we had the Guard giving shots. We had members of the Guard who were going out and volunteering or working at food banks because all the volunteers couldn't go out. So the Guard can do many, many things. They're an amazing group for logistics, getting something done, something from one place to another, all of those things. When we're dealing with violent criminals, the best resource is the resources you see up here. These, and it's, again, I want to stress it, it is the federal government, it's the state government, it is the county, it is the city, all of those agencies working together and targeting violent offenders. That is the most effective tool. So when I became governor, you know, my background started as a county prosecuting attorney. I was attorney general for 8 years. I asked Andy Wilson, I said, look, we have to do more. The state has to do more. We are a local government state. We have over 900 police departments around the state of Ohio. We respect that. They're the ones who are in charge, but the state can be more of help than we have been in the past. And so when I became governor, we started looking at how can we be more helpful. And we came up with this idea that we can take 3 or 4 of our agencies and put them into a city at the request of the mayor and surge in there for targeted, very specific programs, not just out patrolling every day, but literally working with the Cleveland Police Department in this case. And it has worked. Now, do we still have violent crime? Yes, we do. But this action is bringing about some very, very good results and getting some bad people off the streets. You have to get the violent repeat offenders off the streets. You have to lock them up, and you have to keep them locked up.
Governor, as you guys know,
Let the mayor answer that one.
The governor and I are 100% aligned on this issue, Nick. And the answer is what you see behind us on this podium here. These partnerships are a force multiplier to keep our streets safe and secure. And so I want more investments in the FBI. I want more investments in U.S. Marshal. I want more investments in the ATF and DEA to get violent offenders off our street, to get illegal guns off our streets. The National Guard, in my opinion, is not the solution.
Yeah, question.
We talk about violent repeat offenders, but obviously here in Cleveland, juveniles committing crime, violent crime, petty crime, even breaking into cars and such sure that, you know, they're set up for success, but often these kids are turning to the streets into crime. How do we stop this from happening?
Yeah, well, there's no easy answer to that. If there was, all of us would have dealt with it by now. Let me just say this: what we see in Cleveland is not unique. We're seeing it in cities across the state and cities across the country. Law enforcement will tell you when you talk to them, and prosecutors will tell you, that the violent offenders are getting younger and younger. It's a tragic thing. It's a very scary thing. The victims are generally also juveniles. So you have a 16-year-old killed by a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old killed by a 17-year-old. So look, we have to deal with this from a law enforcement point of view. We have to go after them. We have to lock them up. We also, at the same time, obviously have to do other things to provide better education, focus on education. We got to focus on reading. We got to I mean, all of these things we have to do. We have to make sure that young people have boys club, girls club. They have something to do after school, etc. You have to do all the above, and so it's not this way or that way. You have to do it all, and have to also accept, though, that even when you're trying to do it all, that there's still some that you're still seeing 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and sometimes as low as 12 or 13. So yes, it is. We're in a different period of time in our history, and that's not a good situation.
Governor, what would you be willing to do at the state level to keep guns out of people's hands in the first place? There's so many guns being taken off the streets. He mentioned young criminals.
Thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the question. We have a law in the state of Ohio, as most states do, and the federal government does, and it says that certain people are not allowed to have guns. So if you're convicted of a violent offense in the state of Ohio, you lose your right, your constitutional right, to have a gun. You don't have that right anymore. The federal government also has a similar law. The difference between the federal government's law and the state law is the federal government has some teeth in it. It is much tougher. If you are found in possession of a gun and you're charged by the U.S. attorney and taken into federal court, you can spend a long time in prison. In Ohio, we do not have that tough a law. So the legislature can change that. And I'm again asking the state legislature to pass a law that would mirror the federal law so that prosecutors will have that tool so that they can file that case and have that person locked up for a long period of time. The truth is that these violent offenders almost always have a gun. Almost always have a gun. So if you make a traffic stop or if you make a legal stop, then, and you find that person, if you're a police officer, you find that person has a gun, you can charge them. But there's only so many of these cases the U.S. attorney can take. We need to free our prosecutors and free our police to charge under a more enhanced state law that would lock these people up and keep them locked up for a long period of time.
Governor, again, kudos to the police and to the citizens of the city of Cleveland. You talked about 1,000 guns having been taken off the streets here in Cleveland recently over the last few years or so. What's happening to those guns? I hear that those guns are trying to work their ways back on the streets. I've been covering music for 35 years. I used to cover going over the LTV steel and watching them being melted down so they could not be used again. What's happening to the guns?
I'm going to ask the assistant chief to take that one or somebody in law enforcement to take it.
Give us something to finish.
That's a very good question, sir, and I appreciate you asking it. We currently, we are not releasing these guns that are involved with the crimes unless ordered to by the court. We have them in our evidence, and we are working through the process of destroying them through multiple ways, whether it's going to the steel mill, whether it's grinding them and destructing them so they cannot be operable anymore. But as far as the guns that we seize with these, once they're released from the courts and we get signed off from the judge, we do destroy the firearms.
Looking at the sample sizes that you showed, it's almost a period of 50 years to a period of just over a year. Obviously, you can't draw too many
that, but it seems to be impactful. That's your message here today. Is this partnership going to be extended, funded here for the future for years to come?
Yeah, I mean, we fund this in the state does, under my administration. We fund it in different ways. The briefing we just had, as I said, some of the people who are involved in that are funded partially or totally. It takes a cooperative effort, but it takes everybody on board. And so, we're going to continue, as long as I'm governor, we're going to continue to do that. State's going to try to play its role. The local county will, the city will, and the federal government will. Everybody has to be on board.
Speaking of that, this is your last term. What's going to happen when you have?
Thank you for reminding me that.
What happens next? Is this going to continue?
Well, look, whoever is the next governor, I think it's important that the next governor understand that basic fact. You have to go after the repeat violent offenders, and you have to lock them up, and you have to keep them locked up. It is really simple to say. Sometimes it's not as easy to carry out. But, I hope the next governor, whoever that next governor is, understands that. So for the next 14 months and so many days, this governor will continue to do that.
Question for the mayor. You're making a switch from ShotSpotter to Flock Safety. Could you explain why that switch and what your take was on the ShotSpotter stuff?
Yeah, well, I believe this gunshot detection technology is paramount to the work we're doing to keep our streets safe in Cleveland. It's saved countless lives. It's helped us recover a lot of illegal guns. We were at the strike force earlier talking about the fact that because of this technology, we have a 80% homicide solve rate right now, and the national average is what, 50%? 64%. And so it's paying dividends. And we're going to make the case on why this new gunshot detection technology, as well as license plate readers, our real-time crime center, more cameras, all this technology gives us more intelligence, gives us more data to keep our streets safe, and we're making the case to Councilman Polincic on the importance of these investments moving forward.
If I may, it sounds like the pain point that they identified was having enough officers to respond to all of the ShotSpotter history.
Well, one of the things about the new Flock technology is that it allows us to prioritize what's a material response versus a non-material response. And we've worked really hard to boost our ranks of our cadet classes. We executed a 34% pay increase over the last 3 years, the biggest pay increase in modern history. How many cadets we have in the academy now?
78.
78 in the academy already, with 2 graduation classes coming up. So again, we got to do all of the above, and the technology helps us keep our streets safe. Deputy Chief, you want to talk about that?
Thanks, Harry. It's a good question. Flock, obviously, is a company that we're contracting with right now to bring their technology in. We currently have Flock cameras up in the city of Cleveland, throughout the city of Cleveland. What we're talking about now with gunshot technology and also other integrations with it, where we'll have the ability with the Flock technology, which is the company, to integrate cameras into the technology. The previous gunshot technology did not have that ability, so we're able to do that. Also, with the Flock technology, we'll have the ability to detect street takeovers. When folks are in the middle of intersections with their vehicles, with this new technology, we'll be able to hear that, have cameras actually go to that particular area, so we'll have real-time information for our officers that are responding to those particular calls. And also, this particular technology also gives us the ability to detect accidents in intersections and so forth. So it's a great technology. We'll give our officers real-time intelligence and data to respond to those incidents, again, in real time.
Let me give an example. This week, Harry, we had that Rayshawn Reese case where that woman at 25th in Detroit was attacked, attempted to be kidnapped. You think about that. It happened at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 9 a.m., the Cleveland police were at his house arresting him. And it's because of the technology that currently exists, the cameras, the LPRs, where 20 years ago, God only knows when that crime would have been solved. and he was a repeat violent sexual predator. Within hours, CPD was knocking at his door, arrested, and we found the box cutter that he slashed her up with in the front seat of his vehicle with her DNA on it. So it is that type of technology. We had a similar one on Lakewood Heights Boulevard a few years ago. There was a violent homicide. LPR reader, car comes through it, it's a stolen car. That individual was pulled over. The stolen information that was in that car led us to a house on Lakewood Heights Boulevard. They went to the house on Lakewood Heights Boulevard and they found somebody deceased, murdered in the garage, all because of technology. Stuff that we wouldn't have had 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's making law enforcement's job, first of all, much quicker, but also the results are such that they're irrefutable. So it's a great investment.
Mayor Bibb, a county sheriff deputy recently spoke at county council saying that Cleveland police are under restrictions, meaning the consent decree, and this is why they do what they do. There has been concern that this is a way to get around the consent decree, having them patrol the streets. Your thoughts?
Well, I would say this. The men and women of our police department are working their butts off every day. They're being aggressive, doing good police work. And we made a lot of good strides over the last 10 plus years under the consent decree in terms of making sure we meet the moment as it relates to constitutionally appropriate policing. I'll leave it to the county executive and the county sheriff to dictate what their policies are. And I'm working really hard with Dr. Anderson, my law director, and the monitor to get compliant and get out of the consent decree as quickly as we can, because 10 years has been a long time and a lot of money, but it's a worthwhile investment, and hopefully we'll be compliant and be out of this thing, hopefully relatively soon. Okay?
Okay.
I got one more about the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. You said so many repeat offenders who want to go back out and do the same things over again. It seems like that's just not working, essentially, based off of your data. Is there anything you'd like to say about the efforts to get people rehabilitated after they're arrested and how that needs to be?
Well, we have about 18,000 people coming out of the state prison system every year, based on the sentence they got, based on what the law says. The vast majority of them, aren't showing up in these statistics, but some of them are, certainly. And one of the things that we can do is when that person is not in compliance with whatever the terms, the conditions of their parole, then we can pull them back. Now, we have a lot more people today, and I'll ask Andy Wilson to come on up here, but you have people, because of determinate sentences, who do not necessarily, they're not under supervision after they come out. Andy, you want to take that? Yeah. Or anybody else?
I think Mike O'Malley and I could take this. So, they changed from old parole to post-release control. So you're just limited in your ability to send people back for extended periods of time. And that is kind of handcuffed the parole authority's ability to really hold some of these folks accountable. Obviously, again, I talked when I first talked about pressure. When somebody comes out of prison and they're a high-risk offender, there needs to be a lot of pressure on them to make sure that they're following the rules. And I think, actually, we've heard multiple times, and I've seen it with my own eyes, that our parole officers up here are integral parts of these task forces. So when we're out on the streets, when they're out on the streets addressing violent crime, we have parole completely integrated in making sure that those folks are doing what they need to be doing, and when they're not, they're yanking them back. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I just agree. For instance, Ray Sean Reese from this week, he had served his time for his previous violent sexual assault. He was off parole. When somebody's doing 20 years, they're doing 20 years, their time's up, and they're off parole, these things will happen. I want to touch back on your issue. You talked about juveniles. And in Cuyahoga County, working with the Ohio Department of Youth Services, in the last several years, we started a juvenile a program where we put a juvenile intervention center where we're trying to get juveniles on the right path, and we had never had this in Cuyahoga County. So we have invested, the state has invested a good deal of money in this program to try to give programming to juveniles to get them on the right track. However, there comes a point in time, as we've seen, where at some point you need to hold somebody accountable. I think, Harry, you were there, I think, for our press conferences 3 weeks ago when that individual, we were looking for him for shooting the 17-year-old in the back of the head. It was an execution. He was 17. I don't believe that kid, I don't think he even had a prior record, but we are trying to work with juveniles, but at some point, the crimes they commit dictate that they need to be removed from society for the sake of the rest of us. And, you know, I sat with the mother of that 17-year-old who was executed, and she'll never get over it, nor can any parent ever get over something like that. But I want to commend, Pete Elliott's not here, but we had a press conference. We made the public aware of what this individual had done. The public could see it. And within 3 weeks, we had that individual arrested, and he's taken into custody, and we will bring justice to that family.
Conclusion, let me just thank all the agencies and departments who are up here. This is a team effort. It will continue to be a team effort. Mayor, anything?
That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everybody.